Hello, in this video we're going to talk about how do we find the nth term in a sequence and write a formula. First of all, a sequence. So a sequence is basically any series of numbers. And within that series of numbers, you might hear it referred to as finite or infinite. Finite simply means it ends, and infinite means that it continues. So you usually see like the three dots. For the sake of this, we're going to assume most of our sequences are infinite, especially if like it gives us an initial sequence of numbers and says, what would the 100th term be? It doesn't tell us not, and then it's asking us for the 100th term. We would assume that it's going to be an infinite sequence in that case. Unless it's like, oh, look, we have 1, 4, 7, 10. That's it. That's a sequence of numbers. So that's simplest way you could probably explain a sequence, just a series of numbers. So here's a sequence I drew out in a picture form, just to kind of give an added layer to this. You might see this picture. And so the picture starts out, the first term has 3, and then it looks like it's adding 4 in the second term, and then 4 more in the third term. So we're really looking at like a sequence of these numbers. It would be 3, 7, 11. And we're going to assume this is an infinite sequence because I'm literally asking you for the 100th term down here. So we're like, okay, what's the 100th term? Well, this is because it's adding 4 and it's increasing by the exact same amount from one term to the next term. That's what's called an arithmetic sequence. Another type of sequence would be a geometric sequence. We're only dealing with arithmetic sequences right now, which are simply increasing by adding or the same exact change. It might be subtraction too. It's the same change from one term to the next term. That's arithmetic. Geometric is more so when you have a common ratio that it's multiplied by. So you're dealing with multiplying at that point. Here is a formula to find an arithmetic sequence. You would say the a sub nth term, which in this case would be 100. So we'll say a100 is going to equal the a sub 1 or first term, which in our case is 3, plus d. D is the difference. What's the difference between each term? And it is 4. So we do 4 times n, the number term you want to find, 100, minus 1. And the reason we subtract 1 is because if we're looking for the first term, you'd actually want this to zero out. So you'd say 3. So my first term would be 1 minus 1, because 1, but that would be 0. 0 times 4 is 0, plus 3 is 3. So a sub 1 would equal 3. We want that to happen. So that's kind of the subtracting 1 piece there. All right, so anyways, a to the 100th would be 3 plus 4 times. So we do 100 minus 1 is 99. 99 times 4 is 396. Plus 3 more is 399. And so you can double check the math on that, but this is the correct thing, I believe. And that's kind of how you would write an arithmetic sequence. Again, we're not going to be dealing with geometric sequences right now, just arithmetic ones. So there's 2 ways to write this arithmetic sequence. You can use an explicit formula, that's the primary one we're going to use, or a recursive one. So recursive is kind of more ambiguous and is more so something referred to in programming. If you were to Google recursive functions, you're going to get a lot of things about programming computers and things like that. And that's where it tells you if a sub 1 equals 3, then a sub n is going to equal the term before plus d, where d is the difference. So in the case before on the previous slide, you would say that a sub n, so whatever term that is going to equal the term before plus 4. And in order to figure this out, you need to know the term before. But then in order to figure out the term before, you need to know the term before that. So there's a lot of backwards work. You kind of got to work one step at a time in recursive. It's not as efficient as an explicit function, which is much clearer. And so the clear explicit function uses that formula we were using for arithmetic sequences. And you'd say a sub n equals 3 plus 4, the distance, or the difference, not distance, difference, times n minus 1. And that's what we used in the previous one to find the 100th term. You could find the 100th, the 300th, the 150th, the 72nd, whatever term you want to find. Just plug that in for n here and here, and it will tell you in that sequence what it is. Again, that's the difference between explicit and recursive. Now, the other question B is this finite or infinite. And if it doesn't tell you that there's like a limit to it, like it's only from this section to this section, you're going to assume that it's infinite. So in the case that we were talking about before, because it gave us 3 pictures and then we asked for the 100th term, well, then it's probably infinite. So we would assume it's infinite, but we're not 100% certain. And that again is how you would find the nth term in a sequence and then write a formula for it.